The rain drummed against the office windows as Daniel sat alone, reviewing quarterly reports long after everyone else had gone home. At 42, he'd built Romano Industries from a garage startup into a tech company worth $30 million. His phone buzzed, a voicemail from his wife, Clare. He almost ignored it, but something made him press play. What he heard shattered 15 years of marriage in 90 seconds. "God, I can't believe we almost got caught today," Claire's breathless voice giggled. "When Daniel came home early, I thought my heart would stop." A male voice responded, one Daniel knew too well. Victor Laurent, his business partner and supposed best friend since college. "You worry too much. He's clueless. Always has been." "I know, but," Claire's voice softened with that intimacy Daniel thought was reserved for him. "This has been going on for 8 months, Victor. Eventually, he'll figure it out." "So what if he does?" "The prenup protects nothing. You'll get half of everything, and I'll still have my share of the company. We win either way, sweetheart." Their laughter echoed before the message cut off. A pocket dial. A stupid, careless mistake that unraveled everything. Daniel sat frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear. He played it again. Then again. Each replay carved deeper into the life he thought he knew. The late meetings Claire claimed with her book club. The weekend conferences Victor suddenly needed to attend. The new lingerie Daniel had found in the laundry, which Claire said was a surprise for their anniversary, still 2 months away. He didn't cry. Didn't scream. Didn't throw anything. Instead, something cold and clear settled over him like frost. Daniel pulled up his computer and began making lists. He worked through the night, fueled by coffee and the kind of focused rage that sharpens rather than clouds. By dawn, he had a plan that touched every aspect of his life: legal, financial, personal, and professional. His first call went to Mitchell Park, a divorce attorney known for discretion and ruthlessness. The second went to his company's board secretary. The third to a forensic accountant he'd met at a conference 2 years ago. Each conversation was brief, emotionless, efficient. When Claire came home the next evening, full of apologies about her girls' night running late, Daniel kissed her forehead like he always did. "How was it?" he asked. "Oh, you know Rachel, she talks forever," Claire laughed, meeting his eyes without a trace of guilt. "We're thinking of doing a weekend trip to that spa in Napa next month." "Sounds great," Daniel said. "You deserve it." Over the following weeks, Daniel became a ghost in his own life. He showed up for dinners, asked about Claire's day, made love to her when she initiated, all while systematically dismantling the world they'd built together. He smiled at Victor during board meetings while his forensic accountant dug through 3 years of company records. What they found was astounding. Victor had been skimming money through fake vendor accounts, almost $2 million. He'd been so confident in his friendship with Daniel, so sure of his own cleverness, that he'd barely covered his tracks. Daniel documented everything. Bank transfers, forged invoices, emails that showed clear intent. He built a case that would send Victor to prison and give him grounds to terminate their partnership agreement with cause, meaning Victor would get nothing. Claire noticed nothing. She was too busy planning her secret future, texting Victor behind closed bathroom doors, whispering phone calls she thought Daniel couldn't hear. The trap was set. Daniel just needed to decide when to spring it. On their 15th anniversary, Claire suggested dinner at Marcello's, where Daniel had proposed. He agreed. They sat across from each other in the candlelight, and Claire raised her glass. "To 15 more years," she toasted. Daniel smiled and touched his glass to hers. "To the future," he said. It was the last dinner they would ever share. The morning after their anniversary dinner, Daniel left for what Claire believed was a business trip to Seattle. He kissed her goodbye, loaded his suitcase into the car, and drove away from their Tudor-style home in the suburbs for the last time. He didn't go to Seattle. Instead, Daniel checked into a corporate apartment across town, a furnished place he'd rented under his attorney's name. From there, he executed the first phase of his plan with surgical precision. At 9 a.m., Claire received an email from Daniel's lawyer. Divorce papers, accompanied by a flash drive containing the voicemail recording and a simple note: "I know everything. Do not contact me." All communication goes through Mitchell Park. At 9:15, Victor arrived at Romano Industries to find federal investigators waiting in his office. The forensic evidence Daniel had compiled sat in neat folders on the conference table. $2 million in embezzled funds, tracked down to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Daniel watched both scenes unfold through carefully placed intermediaries. He'd hired a paralegal to observe Claire's reaction when the papers were delivered. A board member he trusted sent him updates about Victor's arrest. Daniel himself remained invisible, unreachable. Claire's first reaction was disbelief. She called Daniel's phone 63 times in the first hour. Each call went to voicemail, a new number she didn't recognize, with a generic message. She sent texts that bounced back as undeliverable. She drove to his office, only to learn from the receptionist that Daniel had sold his majority stake in Romano Industries to a venture capital firm 3 days earlier, a deal negotiated in complete secrecy. "That's impossible," Claire told the receptionist. "He would have told me." The young woman looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Romano." Mr. Romano's lawyer said to direct all inquiries to his office. Claire tried to access their joint bank accounts. Frozen. Their credit cards. Cancelled. The house, she discovered when she called their mortgage company, had been refinanced in her name alone 2 weeks ago. With a forged signature Daniel had somehow managed to legitimize through a notary he'd paid handsomely. Everything he legally could do without her direct involvement, he'd done. Everything else, he'd prepared so thoroughly that she had no leverage, no wiggle room, no cards to play. Victor's arrest made the news by noon. Tech executive charged with embezzlement and wire fraud. The article detailed a scheme spanning 3 years, potentially longer. It mentioned Romano Industries, the pending federal investigation, and a whistleblower whose identity remained protected. Claire knew. Of course she knew. Daniel had done this. Somehow, impossibly, her careful, trusting husband had discovered everything and burned both their lives down without giving either of them a chance to explain, to apologize, to beg. She drove to Mitchell Park's office and demanded to see him. The receptionist politely informed her that Mr. Park was unavailable and that Mrs. Romano should communicate through her own attorney. "I don't have an attorney," Claire shouted. "I need to talk to my husband." "Mr. Romano has been very clear," the receptionist said, her voice professionally sympathetic. "He does not wish to have any contact with you. The divorce papers outline everything. I suggest you retain counsel immediately." That night, Claire sat in their bedroom, her bedroom now, surrounded by 15 years of photographs. Daniel smiling on their wedding day. Daniel holding her hand in Paris. Daniel celebrating the first major contract that made Romano Industries viable. In every picture, he looked at her with such complete trust, such unguarded love. She'd destroyed that. For what? For Victor, who was now facing 10 years in federal prison. For excitement. For the thrill of getting away with something. Her phone rang. Victor, calling from lockup. "Claire, you have to help me," he said immediately. "This is insane. I need bail money, my accounts are frozen. I need you to talk to Daniel. Tell him I'll pay everything back." "Victor, he won't talk to me. He won't talk to anyone." "Then find him. Use your private investigator. Use whatever resources you have. He set me up, Claire. He destroyed me." "We destroyed him," Claire whispered. "What?" "We did this. He trusted us, and we." "I don't have time for your guilt." Victor snapped. "I'm looking at serious prison time. You need to fix this." Claire hung up. She never spoke to Victor again. 3 months passed. Claire moved through her days like a woman underwater, everything muffled, distorted, hard to breathe through. The divorce proceedings continued without Daniel ever appearing. His lawyers handled everything through depositions, affidavits, and electronic signatures. Claire's attorney, a bulldog named Patricia Russo who'd handled 3 of her friends' divorces, seemed genuinely baffled. "I've never seen anything like this," Patricia told Claire during their weekly meeting. "He's given you the house, half the liquid assets, and a very generous alimony structure. He's asking for nothing except to dissolve the marriage as quickly as possible." "I don't want his money," Claire said. "I want to talk to him." "Why?" "Legally, you're getting an excellent deal. Most wronged spouses fight tooth and nail. He's being extraordinarily fair. That's what makes it worse." Claire stared at her hands. "He's being generous because he doesn't care anymore. I'm not even worth his anger." Patricia's expression softened. "Mrs. Romano, I'm going to be blunt. Your husband caught you having an 8-month affair with his business partner. You don't get to control how he processes that or what closure looks like for him. Take the settlement. Move on." But Claire couldn't move on. She hired a private investigator named Thomas Grant, who spent 6 weeks trying to locate Daniel. Every lead evaporated. The corporate apartment had been vacated. His new phone number was unlisted and changed every few weeks. His old friends and colleagues had been contacted by his lawyers and asked to maintain his privacy. Most complied, either out of loyalty or because the financial incentives Daniel offered were too good to refuse. Thomas finally reported back with the few facts he'd managed to confirm. Daniel had sold Romano Industries for $42 million. He'd resigned from every board and charitable organization he'd been part of. His passport showed he'd left the country, but the destinations were sealed by some legal mechanism Thomas couldn't penetrate. "The man doesn't want to be found," Thomas said. "And he has the resources to make sure he isn't. I'm sorry, Mrs. Romano, but I can't help you." Claire's friends tried to rally around her, but their sympathy felt hollow. Rachel, her supposed best friend and cover story for countless affairs, barely spoke to her anymore. The other women in their social circle whispered when Claire entered rooms. Some blamed her. Others pitied her. None understood the depth of her regret. Late one night, Claire found herself parked outside Romano Industries, now owned by Stratosphere Capital and renamed. The building where Daniel had spent countless nights building something from nothing, where he'd celebrated every victory and weathered every setback. She remembered bringing him dinner at midnight, finding him asleep at his desk, dark circles under his eyes but a smile breaking through when he saw her. "You're my luck," he'd told her once. "Everything good in my life started when I met you." She'd believed he would always feel that way. She'd taken his love for granted, treated it as an inexhaustible resource, something she could spend without consequence. Her phone buzzed. An email from Mitchell Park's office. The divorce was finalized. She was no longer Clare Romano. She'd kept her maiden name, Claire Hartley, and with it, the bitter freedom of being alone. The email included one attachment, a letter from Daniel. The first direct communication in 3 months. Claire's hands shook as she opened it. "Claire, by the time you read this, our marriage will be legally over. I'm writing this not because you deserve an explanation, but because I need to say these things for my own peace. I loved you more than I thought it was possible to love another person. You were my partner, my best friend, the person I trusted with every fear and hope. When I heard that voicemail, it wasn't just betrayal that destroyed me. It was the sudden understanding that the person I loved most in the world had never really existed. The woman I married wouldn't have done what you did. She wouldn't have lied to my face for 8 months. She wouldn't have laughed with my best friend about how clueless I was. So either you changed into someone unrecognizable, or I never really knew you at all. Both possibilities are unbearable. You want closure. You want to apologize, to explain, to somehow make this hurt less. But there's nothing you can say that will change what happened. And honestly, I don't want your apologies. They won't give me back the 8 months you stole, the trust you destroyed, or the future we'll never have. I'm rebuilding my life somewhere you'll never find me, with people who don't know this version of my story. Eventually, this will become something that happened to me once, rather than the thing that defines me. I hope you find some version of that peace too. Don't try to contact me again. I won't respond. Daniel." Claire read the letter 7 times before she understood. This was goodbye. Real, final, irrevocable goodbye. She cried until she had nothing left. Victor Laurent's trial began 8 months after his arrest. Claire attended every day of the proceedings, sitting in the back row where the reporters couldn't easily photograph her. The prosecution built their case methodically. Bank records, email chains, testimony from Romano Industries employees who'd noticed irregularities. The forensic accountant Daniel had hired, a severe woman named Dr. Yuki Tanaka, walked the jury through each fraudulent transaction with devastating clarity. Over 37 months, Dr. Tanaka testified, the defendant systematically embezzled $2.3 million through a network of shell companies. He created fake vendors, approved his own invoices, and transferred funds to offshore accounts. The sophistication suggests planning and deliberation, not impulsive theft. Victor's defense tried to paint him as a victim of circumstance, a man who'd made mistakes under financial pressure. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 4 hours before returning with a guilty verdict on all counts: wire fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. Claire watched Victor being led away in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled from days of wear, his face aged years in months. He'd lost everything: his freedom, his reputation, his future. And for what? For money he'd barely spent, for an affair that had meant nothing beyond ego and opportunity. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. "Mrs. Romano, do you have any comment on the verdict?" "I'm not Mrs. Romano anymore," Claire said quietly. "And no, I have no comment." But one reporter persisted, following her to her car. "Is it true you had an affair with Mr. Laurent? Is that how your husband discovered the embezzlement?" Claire stopped, turned. "You want to know the truth?" "Yes, I had an affair. Yes, I destroyed my marriage. And yes, my ex-husband found out and responded by exposing crimes that sent his former friend to prison. That's the story. I was selfish and stupid, and I lost the best thing in my life. Write that." The article appeared 2 days later: "Scorned husband's perfect revenge. Tech exec destroys wife's lover and disappears." It went viral. Claire's face was plastered across social media, dissected by strangers who knew nothing about her except her worst mistake. She stopped reading the comments after the first 100. The cruelty was breathtaking. People she'd never met felt entitled to judge every aspect of her character, to speculate about what kind of person would betray such a successful, generous man, to create elaborate fantasies about Daniel's new life and Claire's deserved misery. Some of it was accurate. She was miserable. She did deserve consequences. But the internet's version of justice felt performative, a way for strangers to feel morally superior while entertaining themselves with her pain. Her mother called, voice tight with disappointment. "I saw the article, Claire. The whole family is talking. How could you do this to Daniel? He was always so good to you." "I know, Mom. Your father won't even speak your name. He's too ashamed." "I know. What were you thinking?" "I wasn't," Claire whispered. That was the problem. She'd lost her husband, her friends, her reputation, her family's respect. The house felt like a mausoleum, every room haunted by memories of the life she'd thrown away. She considered selling it. But where would she go? What would she do? Claire had defined herself through Daniel for so long, as his wife, his partner, his support system, that she'd never developed a strong identity of her own. She'd volunteered at his charity galas, networked for his business, decorated the home where he barely spent time because he was building their future. Now she had money from the divorce settlement but no purpose. Freedom but nowhere to go. Time but nothing meaningful to fill it with. One afternoon, Claire found herself in the garage, sorting through boxes Daniel had left behind. Old college textbooks, photos from his childhood, letters from his mother who'd died when he was 23. Personal things he'd chosen to abandon rather than risk seeing her again to collect them. At the bottom of one box, she found their wedding album. She'd looked at it 1,000 times, but now each photo felt like evidence of a crime. Daniel's smile on their wedding day, genuine, full of joy and hope. Claire in her white dress, looking at the camera rather than at her husband. The symbolism was too perfect. Even then, she'd been looking elsewhere. A small envelope fell out of the album. Claire recognized Daniel's handwriting, "For our 15th anniversary." Inside was a letter, dated 2 days before the voicemail that had ended everything. "My love. 15 years ago, I made the best decision of my life when I asked you to marry me. Every year since has been a gift. I know I work too much, that I'm not always present the way you deserve, but I want you to know, you are the reason for everything I've built. Every success, every achievement, has been in service of giving you the life you deserve. For our anniversary, I've planned something special. I've sold my majority stake in the company, surprise. I'm stepping back from the day-to-day operations. I want to travel with you, spend more time together, maybe finally start that family we've been putting off. I know I've been distant, but that's changing. You're my priority now. Forever yours. Daniel. Claire's hands trembled. He'd been planning to surprise her, to give her more of himself, exactly when she'd been betraying him. If she'd waited just a few more days, if she'd been honest about her unhappiness instead of seeking comfort elsewhere. But there was no point in if. The past was fixed, immutable, cruel. She carefully placed the letter back in the envelope and returned it to the box. Some wounds didn't heal. Some mistakes didn't get second chances. All she could do was learn to live with what she'd done. 2 years after the divorce, Claire had built a small, quiet life. She'd sold the house, too many ghosts, and moved to a modest apartment in the city. She'd gone back to school, finishing the art history degree she'd abandoned when she and Daniel got married. She volunteered at a women's shelter, helping others rebuild from trauma and bad choices. She didn't date, didn't pursue romance. She'd had her chance at love and had destroyed it through selfishness and cowardice. Now she focused on becoming someone she could respect, even if she never quite forgave. One Tuesday afternoon, Claire was leaving the university library when she saw him. Daniel stood near the fountain in the courtyard, talking with a woman Claire didn't recognize. He looked different, leaner, tanned, his hair slightly longer. But it was unmistakably him. The same precise way he gestured when making a point, the same slight head tilt when he listened. Claire froze. For 2 years, she'd imagined this moment. She'd rehearsed what she'd say, how she'd apologize, how she'd make him understand the depth of her regret. But now, watching him laugh at something the woman said, Claire realized he didn't want her apologies. He'd moved on in a way she never had. The woman touched Daniel's arm, casual, comfortable, the gesture of someone who'd earned the right to casual intimacy. She was younger than Claire, pretty in an understated way, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Claire should have left. Should have let him have this moment undisturbed. But her feet carried her forward before her brain could override them. "Daniel," she said softly. He turned, and for a split second, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe pain, maybe just the shock of seeing a ghost from his past. Then his expression smoothed into polite neutrality. "Claire." His voice was even, controlled. "This is unexpected. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were back in town. I wouldn't have, I'm not stalking you or anything. I'm just taking classes here. It's fine. It's a public space." He glanced at the woman beside him, who was watching the exchange with careful curiosity. "This is Dr. Nadia Osman. She's a professor in the engineering department. Nadia, this is Claire Hartley, my ex-wife." The introduction was clinical, devoid of emotion. Ex-wife. Not the person I used to be married to or someone I used to know. Just the factual designation of their legal relationship and its termination. "I should go," Claire said. "I'm sorry for interrupting." "Wait." Daniel's voice stopped her. He exchanged a look with Nadia, who nodded and stepped away, giving them privacy. Daniel turned back to Claire, studying her with the careful attention of someone examining a stranger. "How have you been?" The question was so normal, so painfully ordinary, that Claire almost laughed. "I've been learning to live with my choices. Going back to school. Trying to become someone better." "That's good. I'm glad. Are you?" The words came out sharper than she intended. "Glad, you disappeared so completely. I didn't know if you were alive or dead for months." "That was intentional." "I know." Claire wrapped her arms around herself. "I know I don't deserve explanations or closure or anything from you. But I need you to know, I'm sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was selfish and bored and too much of a coward to just tell you I was unhappy." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I appreciate that. I do. But Claire, I forgave you a long time ago. Not because you deserved it, but because holding on to that anger was destroying me." "So you're happy now? You've moved on?" "I'm building something new. I don't know if happy is the word, but I'm content. I teach a few classes here, do some consulting work. I bought a small house by the ocean. It's peaceful. And her, Nadia, is someone I'm getting to know. Slowly, carefully, with complete honesty on both sides." The implication stung, as it was meant to. "I deserved that." "You deserve to move on too," Daniel said, his voice softening slightly. "What happened between us was devastating, but it doesn't have to define the rest of your life. You made terrible choices. You hurt me in ways I'm still recovering from. But you're not irredeemable, Claire. You're just human." Tears blurred Claire's vision. "I loved you, you know. I really did. I just didn't love you enough, or in the right way, or, I don't know. I took you for granted." "I know you did. And I made mistakes too. I worked too much, I put the business ahead of our relationship, I assumed our marriage was secure enough to survive my neglect. We were both imperfect, Claire. The difference is how we handled those imperfections." "I wish I could go back," Claire whispered. "I wish I could do everything differently." "We don't get do-overs. We just get the consequences of our choices and the chance to make better ones going forward." Nadia was walking back toward them, clearly giving them time to finish but signaling the conversation needed to end. Daniel noticed and gave Claire a small, sad smile. "Take care of yourself, Claire. I mean that genuinely. You deserve peace, even if we'll never find it together." "You too. I hope she makes you happy." "She makes me want to try again. That's enough for now." Claire watched them walk away together, Daniel's hand finding Nadia's with an ease that spoke of growing trust, of possibility, of second chances that wouldn't include Claire. She stood by the fountain until they disappeared into the engineering building, then slowly walked back to her car. The encounter had given her what she'd thought she wanted, a chance to apologize, to see Daniel one more time, to know he'd survived and even thrived. But it had also shown her the final truth she'd been avoiding. Forgiveness from Daniel wouldn't heal her. Time wouldn't erase what she'd done. Moving on didn't mean the past stopped mattering. She had to learn to carry what she'd done, not as a weapon to punish herself with, but as a reminder of the person she never wanted to be again. She had to find meaning in the consequences, purpose in the pain. That night, Claire pulled out her journal and began writing. Not for publication, not for redemption, but for clarity. "Today I saw Daniel for the first time in 2 years. He was kind. He was fair. He forgave me in a way I haven't yet learned to forgive myself. And in his forgiveness, I finally understood, this was never about him absolving me. This was about me learning to live with being someone who hurt the person I loved most. I don't get a redemption arc. I don't get the moment where everything I lost comes back. I just get tomorrow, and the day after, and the slow, difficult work of becoming someone worthy of the forgiveness Daniel has already given. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that has to be enough." The silence he maintained for 2 years taught me more than any angry confrontation could have. It taught me that some betrayals are so complete that the only appropriate response is to walk away with dignity. That revenge isn't about destruction. It's about choosing your own peace over someone else's punishment. Daniel didn't destroy me the way I destroyed him. He simply refused to let my choices continue to affect his life. That's not cruelty. That's survival. And if he can survive what I did, if he can build something new with someone who deserves his trust, then maybe I can survive what I've become. Maybe I can build something too, not a replacement for what I lost, but something honest and small and mine. The affair destroyed my marriage. The silence afterward destroyed my illusions. What I build from here will have to be constructed on truth, not fantasy. On accountability, not excuses. That's the consequence I have to live with, knowing I'm capable of terrible things, and choosing every day to do better. It's not redemption. But it might be a path forward. Claire closed the journal and looked out her apartment window at the city lights spreading below. Somewhere out there, Daniel was building a new life with a woman who would never betray him. Victor was serving year 3 of his 12-year sentence, paying for crimes compounded by betrayal. And Claire was here, alive and free and learning, slowly, to live with the permanent weight of her choices. She couldn't undo the past. She couldn't earn forgiveness she'd already received but didn't feel she deserved. She could only move forward, carrying what she'd learned, trying to be someone worth the second chance Daniel's silent exit had somehow given her. The story didn't end with reconciliation or revenge or redemption. It ended with acceptance, of consequences, of loss, of the person she'd been and the person she was trying to become. Sometimes that's the only ending available. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and work very hard, it's enough.